And if I could ask everyone to wave to Katrina. Thank you so much for your amazing film. Appreciate you very much. And the reason that camera is over there, we need to do a special shout out and thank you to our volunteer production company. We have Alan Haberchek and Max Toomey of Rather Good Productions who have volunteered their time to be with us tonight so that you all can enjoy this film. So thank you to them. Cancer has an unexpected way of uniting people and leading to extraordinary outcomes from challenging situations. The passing of my mentor to cancer is what inspired me to create the World Water Film Festival in the first place. And when you see the power of what the Strandy family has been doing, to any of those celebrating Rosh Hashanah, Shana Tova, I was at my Jewish in-laws for the kickoff of the holidays last night. And cousins were asking, so what's this event you're doing tomorrow? What's going on? And I explained the story. I explained the story of Amara Strandy and Michael and Nora being here. And cousin Tanya was like, our county, I know who that is. Our county legislator heard of this story, and because of that, initiated a campaign, and their community got their well water tested, and our cousins have unsafe levels of PFOA in their well water. And there's now a settlement, and they're in the process of trying to get the funding to install remediation systems in their own home. It's because of events like this, screening events, the advocacy work that the Strandy family are doing is so important because it is having a ripple effect, and that's why the text is working. That's why we are fundraising tonight to add Swahili and Spanish subtitles. The filmmaker has French subtitles already, so we're looking to facilitate screening events in French-speaking populations around the world. But we really want to bring this because this is a problem in these areas. And once people kind of are aware of what's going on in their backyard, as I said earlier, maybe we can facilitate some waves and some change. So yes. Do you want the microphone?
This is his passion because he believes in human spirit, but I'm the money guy. And he's super conscientious about asking people for any kind of money. He's being extremely too subtle. What he's really asking is for everybody to donate $1, $5, $20, whatever you can, whatever you would like. It's really important. You heard him talk about the impact it can make in Tanzania and other places in the world, and that's how we get it done. Everything we've done is really us, self-funded. Very little has been contributed. So it is always awkward to ask for contributions, but I'm asking for a contribution. So please give whatever you can. Thank you.
And I want to thank Greg for feeding me healthy food for the past 30 years. This has been my partner of 30 years. In gay years, it's 300. Anyway, okay, moving right along. So we're going to have our panel come up now. Unfortunately, we've just heard from our legal panel. Gary and Rebecca will not be able to join us. But we have amazing panelists nonetheless. And then when the panel wraps, we have a very special performance by Nora Strandy, who will be singing an original song, This Is Our Fight. So if I could please welcome to the stage Orly. Come on. Oh, and where's that microphone? Despite being a foreign language major, I do butcher names sometimes. Rodnizak.
It's Rodinak, it's Polish, and it's totally fine for all the non-Europeans here.
Thank you. So last November we were having our festival event at Columbia University, and about a week before I met Orly, who was in charge of the Aquanauts at the time, and stepped in and helped me find some students to volunteer and interview filmmakers, and a friendship was born, and now I've reeled her into being on our board. So she is our newest board member, and we're thrilled to have her on board. So let's bring 3 chairs up. I'm going to grab these. Nope, not yet.
You know what?
Want to do the couch?
I think we're going to
We're gonna do
spoil
the
our
couch.
speakers.
All right, we're going to
maybe
spoil the
we can
speakers. All right. We'll scooch it together.
Since it's an intimate event, and we're in the middle of Climate Week, where are my extra pair of hands?
So, Henk Ovink is the first ever global water ambassador serving over 8 years, appointed by the Netherlands. Read my bifocals here. Special Envoy of International Water Affairs, served on the Hurricane Sandy Rebuilding Task Force and is the Executive Director and Founding Commissioner for the Global Commission on the Economics of Water. Henk, if you would like to come take a seat on the couch. We are profoundly grateful for your championship and your support in our work. Dr. Lall. Dr. Lall is the founding director of the Water Institute of ASU, Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory, and professor of the School of Complex Adaptive Systems. Previously, he served as the Alan Carroll Silverstein Professor in Engineering and Director at Columbia Water Center, Reuters Hot List, because he's a hot man, of the world's top climate scientists. The special thing you need to know about Dr. Lall is when we had this vision to create our event in 2023, Dr. Lall got a random phone call from us and asked if he'd be willing to work with us. And he graciously offered to serve as our host, which was a wonderful thing. We had an event at Columbia's Climate, the Forum at Columbia University, and we would not have had our momentum without you. So thank you very much. All right, Mae Stevens, widely recognized as The Hill's top lobbyist for water, founder and CEO of Current Strategies, Safe Water Voters, and she's an American Business Water Coalition CEO. Previously, Mae was the former environmental policy advisor for Senator Ben Cardin. Thank you, Mae, for being here. And with that, you guys have heard enough from me, so I'm going to sit down. Thank you. Take it away, Orly.
Yeah, let's give Robert a round of applause. Everything you see here, he wasn't joking. We are super grassroots. This is all out of passion to save the world, one might say. And this guy is behind all of this. So, Robert, thank you for this evening. Okay, great. So since I'm 2 speakers short, I'm going to enjoy this panel. Actually, this is probably the most exciting panel I've ever hosted. It feels like the first time. I have pretty much my water expert dream team sitting here. And if the introductions weren't enough, any small Google search will just show you the incredible work of every single one here on the stage. So, on a very personal note, thank you for trusting me to facilitate this conversation. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you here. Before we get started, just so I understand who we're talking with here, on a show of hands, quickly, who heard about PFAS before this event? Okay, not bad. We're good. Anyone working on PFAS or work-related? Okay, beautiful. Who learned something new today? Robert, we did it. We can go home. No, I'm joking. This is a great panel that we're going to have. Okay, so full disclosure, I was in and out, and I was while you were watching the movie, I was watching you guys. And I saw a mix of emotions, okay? I saw some worrying, some fear, dare I say. And I just want to validate that for a second. This topic is very complicated. It touches us all. It can bring a lot of emotions that are scary and overwhelming. And I'm going to stand so even the people in the back can see me with my 5'2". Guys, whatever you felt is precisely what we were hoping in a way to do, not to traumatize you, but to get to a point that you feel and you care about this issue. Anyone who ever created change knows that the first step is that feeling, is getting together. And being here during Climate Week in rush hour, where all of these speakers were running in between, events, to me, this is a massive victory to begin with, right? So I promise you'll feel informed and inspired by the end of this panel, but please, hang on to that feeling, because now you know it's not a distant, abstract issue, okay? And it goes way beyond the story of science being ignored or communities being betrayed, right? It's also about families that turn loss into law, about lawyers who take on giants, about activists and advocates and experts and global experts that are not shying away from this fight. Okay, so with that being said, without further ado, I'd love to jump into not only what's happening, but what can we do about it, right? So with that, I think, Manu, let's start at the very basic level, right? At the kitchen sink level. We know right now that PFAS is a very complex issue, that mitigation, remediation is complicated. But we also know there are main exposure pathways, right? Water, shocker, being one of them, food, and clothing or consumer products. And I'm interested, how would you go about mitigation of this exposure pathway? How would you do it through a supply chain and be able to actually implement and scale it up? And how would you do it on a very individualistic level, like someone in their house?
So I guess I'm going to continue the conversation I had with you before this, because that's probably the best way to deal with this. When Aurelie reached out to me, she was concerned about how all the vast areas that are now contaminated will be remediated. And my response was that when you have just experienced a snake bite, do you want to be rushed to the hospital, or do you want to find snakes and figure out what to do about snakes? And you know the answer is obvious, right? So that's, I think, our first order challenge, because I see PFAS as another new example of something that has been going on for a very long time. And we always come in at the tail end of these issues. So we want to be protected. I would say one issue that I've been talking about lately is how, as academics, can we raise the aspirations of the population for what they should get. You see, you're not saying that I don't want to be exposed to PFAS. You're not saying I don't want to be exposed to TCE. You're not saying that I don't want to be exposed to every new chemical that somebody's going to invent. Why not? You deserve, as a human being, to have the right not to be exposed to these things. So how do we do that? And my answer was, we actually have those technologies. We have had them for a long time. These are membranes that were designed to filter out things at the molecular level. So why are we not using them? When something like Flint comes to light, why are we talking about we need to replace lead pipes and spend $55 billion on that, but we don't do anything about testing whether when the water that comes out of your tap after you have replaced the lead pipes with PVC pipes now produces something different that I may be concerned about. We simply do not have that aspiration stated explicitly. The next thing is, if you know what's coming out of your tap, how do I prevent it from actually getting into you? And yes, we have these membrane technologies. So I did a simple calculation a few years ago when Jackson, Mississippi lost their water supply. And the calculation was this. The city of Jackson, with federal help and help from donors, gave out bottled water to all the residents for 2 months. Anybody who needed water was given bottled water. Should I say this is a bad idea? Probably not. But if I add up the money that was spent, because it comes down to money after all, every household could have been given, with installation and 2 years worth of filters, a reverse osmosis system in the kitchen. 3 of them, not 1, 3 such systems. How many people have 3 kitchens here? You know, you see what I'm getting at? It's like we are simply dumbed down into submission by all the noise about all the things we are being exposed to. It's climate change, it's PFAS, it's whatever. So it's taken away our ability to say, hey, wait a minute, I live on this planet and I want to live in the following way, and I pay taxes and I want to get this. Okay, so a reverse osmosis system in your kitchen, if you buy it from Amazon and self-install or put it on the counter, any idea how much it should cost you? Something that functions and takes all this stuff out. $100, $1,000, $10,000, $20,000. Tell me. Okay. So there's an affordability issue for some people. Is it solvable? Yes. So that's my long answer to your short question.
Picking up on reverse osmosis, which is actually the only, we say it might be not affordable for everybody, but it is affordable to a large section of the population, and it resolves the issue. But there's also co-benefits to it, right? Anybody want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I guess I'll close the story on that. When you're filtering things out at the molecular level, you're removing viruses, you're removing bacteria, you're removing basically anything that has a molecular size that is larger than the water molecule. I mean, you can do that. You have to pressurize the system. There will be some water wasted. Yes, all of those things are true. Do you generate a waste stream? Yes, you generate a waste stream. Can you deal with that waste stream? New York City just passed a law that you have to compost. Great idea. Execution is like phenomenally challenging, right? What would be the equivalent challenge in recycling or processing this particular waste stream? It would not be formidable.
So reverse osmosis, guys, if you want to protect yourself, go on Amazon. There's still Labor Day sales. You can get it. Now, let's talk a little bit. You were mentioning accountability, right? And why are the people not going out to the street and demanding, PFAS-free water? And Mae, let's talk a little bit about communities. So when I was looking a little bit into the funding and cost of PFAS, right? Even with federal support, which currently there is the bipartisan infrastructure law that allocates $8 billion, plus, just for reference, the settlement between 3M was $12.5 billion. So just to give you a little bit of a bulk part. Now, we also know that compliance is, yes, okay, so compliance is projected to cost utilities $1.5 billion per year. That's from the EPA. And more than $3.8 billion annually for PFOA and PFOS alone. So I'm getting the feeling the bipartisan infrastructure law is not going to cover all the cost, right? How can federal policy ensure that we have this funding? Are there any smart mechanism, mixed finance blend that we can actually opt for?
Yeah, well, that's an excellent question. That's sort of the heart of it. So first of all, thank you for having me. Thanks to the filmmakers for putting this together. Thanks for all of you guys for showing up today. This is really important. So please go back home after this and tell everybody you know about the film that you just saw. But what I will say, okay, so for funding, yes, it's very, that the cleanup is going to be very expensive. The one thing to think about is that the settlement that we just saw was not like the end-all be-all of all of the lawsuits that are going to be happening over this, right? So eventually, right, and I don't really want to wait around for eventually, but I guess that's what we have to do. Eventually, there's going to be more than $12.5 billion, which is good because it's going to cost a lot more than that. Just to put the numbers that you just said into perspective, I'm very bad at math. My boyfriend over there is on my calculator because I literally can't do math. But a couple just sort of things to think about, right? So yes, there was some money in the bipartisan infrastructure law that would go towards PFAS specific. There was other money in the bipartisan infrastructure law that would go towards water infrastructure generally, right? And so it can be used for PFAS, but it can also be used if you're, if you're in a town that has a lot of lead pipes, it could be used for that too. It could be used for a lot of different things, right? And it's up to sort of the states and the local communities what they want to use that money for. It gets really boring really fast, so I'm going to leave it there. But if anybody has any other questions, let me know, and I'll bore you after this. But the bipartisan infrastructure law total $55 billion for water infrastructure for the whole country. That's about 5% of the money that we need just to bring our water systems into state of good repair, and that number does not include PFAS, right? So we need about a little bit more than $1 trillion just to bring our systems into a state of good repair for water leaking, like we just talked about, right? There's lead in our water. There's, microplastics is also not included in that. Climate change is also not included in that. So if your well is running dry because of climate change, that's not included as well. So it's just the fact that the water systems in this country are very old, and we've chronically underinvested in water infrastructure the last 40 some years. Now we are coming to pay that price, right? So there's not enough money. There's not enough federal funding. But the good news, the good news is that water infrastructure is a very bipartisan issue. We can get into that more in a minute. But water infrastructure is very bipartisan. It's also, the regulatory scheme is looking very, very hopeful. And I say that in a world where I am constantly surprised at the things that the president is doing right now. In fact, I'm wearing this suit because I long for the days when the most controversial thing that the president can do is wear a tan suit. That would be heaven for me right now. But in the water space specifically, there is a lot of bipartisan support. The Trump administration is sticking up for and defending in court a lot of the things that the Biden administration did specifically about PFAS, but around a lot of other water issues as well. So we have that willingness. What we need is people like you to talk to your members of Congress, reach out to them, and ask them for more money. That is the real need.
So you still believe in federal funding as main source of resolving this issue?
Yes, I think that the federal government owes it to all of us here to protect us, right? And as long as we have to wait around forever for them to go after these companies that are putting this bad stuff in our water, whether it's PFAS or anything else, right? If we have to wait around for that, the government, in this country, we deserve that our government is going to protect us from that, and then they can recoup the cost later from the companies. But I firmly believe that.
So just to put it into perspective, when you pay your water bill and your taxes, this is a responsibility that they hold, that we have a full right to take them into account for. Okay? Thank you for that. And now that we've covered a little bit on how do we mitigate the exposure, how do we fund this? I want to talk a little bit about the zoom out. And Henk, you said once that it would take millions to invest billions wisely, right? And we've made it to the point that we know the system needs to change on a large scale because of the connectivity of it. But in terms of changing market regulation, industrial incentive, global agreements, what would be the alternative? How does it look like? And is that alternative that we are considering right now to replace this model can actually stand the test of time? Is it big enough? Is it fast enough? Is it profitable enough to step in and change all these supply chains that are currently contaminating our resources?
Yes, sorry to be so first, Robert, team, thank you again for doing this, and congrats to the filmmakers. I had the honor to see it in our Den house in Brooklyn, and we rented a place in Brooklyn. Our TV was in our bedroom, and our bedroom was in the basement. So the only way to look at it in a larger screen than on a phone was to sit on the bed and watch it. So it's a weird environment. And it was, like now, like you said, the emotions. So thanks again for doing this, and thank you all for showing up. I've been working around the world on water for like forever. As a optimist, born and raised by an activist mother and an engineer father, there's always this idea that the alternative can convince. As Manu said, we should want something else. But the problem is we don't. So the alternative model to what everything we, like 99+% of what we do, is against what you said. And that's not by emotion, but by research. IPCC Climate Change and Land Report 2019 shows that over 99% of global investments increase climate change, one, and second, because of those investments, make us more vulnerable, including producing all the stupidity that we have. So our valuation and validation models in our financial side of the economics do not take into account anything that actually they should. Values on health, inclusivity, the environment, climate, biodiversity, etc. So changing those models is not impossible. You know, we have them. Valuation models that take into account longer term values and missions where we have, and it's going to be tough, because the planet and its resources are not fit for the 8 moving to 10 billion people that we have. With 2 billion people, we screwed around and it didn't really hurt us because the redundancy in our systems are so massive that whatever we did, it didn't have that negative feedback on us, or not so much. And, you know, the damage we did to the planet was also a little bit less, although we were pretty stupid at that time. But with 8 billion people and an increased stupidity, you know, this is the way we're heading, you know, towards disaster. You're driving a Formula One car, and your family, friends, and your opponents are cheering, yeah, faster, go, and you're driving towards that wall. That's a little bit where we are. So, whatever we put in place now is what we call, with a nice word, maladaptation, which are band-aid approaches that we might need. And I worked in war zones around the world, and before you can go to places like Afghanistan or the Middle East or Iraq or wherever, you are trained, because you can be held hostage or be killed or whatever, you know, anything in between that. So they want you to be trained mentally and physically. And one of the lessons you learn is that when, you know, they blow off your leg, you put in anything in that wound that you have. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be dirty, can be, because you have to stop the bleed. But after that, you have to go to the hospital. So, you know, you have to fix systemically the problem. And the only thing we do is put on Band-Aid upon Band-Aid upon Band-Aid in the hope that we dampen the impacts of the things we put in place. So if the system doesn't change, and this comes back to how money works, if an investment pays off a profit and the loss comes later or not within the context of where that investment makes, this is what's happening. Now, I'm not saying interestingly, but there's a calculations saying that, and this goes beyond PFAS, but to climate change, which has a relationship, but also has not. But I'm not the best expert in PFAS. And I know a little bit more on climate. The impact of a 3-degree world on our GDP, our gross domestic product, a 3-degree world in 2100 is minus 10%. So it's this is, and then we don't take into account biodiversity loss, health loss, etc. This is money talks, minus 10. A 2-degree world, which was also not our ambition, but hey, we can already forget about 1.5, is only minus 1%. So you could say there's an economic reason. So if you believe in money, which I don't, but if you believe in money, there is a reason to prevent 3 degrees and prefer 2 degrees, right? Now we're now not yet there. So in the next 10, 15 years, 10, 12, the economy is a little, it still pays off, stupidity still pays off. On the short term, you earn a profit. But in some parts of the economy, is already there that doing something good, mitigating climate, focusing on health, presenting alternatives, is better for the economy than replicating the past stupidity. So the change of that in the next, there's a business case for stupid investment because there's profit on the short term. And this is what we believe in, around the world. Doesn't matter where you come from or where you live. This is how we live. But there's a change between now and 10 years that stupidity becomes a risk, a financial risk, on the short term, not on the long term. I'm not saying that that will change everything, but it will change some. And financiers from around the world are becoming bigger believers in investing in the things that create value, that ensure that the redundancy in our systems are strengthened, that nature, our environment, but also indigenous knowledge and community science should help drive the way how we validate and evaluate the things we put in our society, our economy. The problem is systems change take time. So it's not that you can say, oh, we'll change the system. Wow, paradise. This is not how it works. So if you want to change these economies, it takes generations. So the impact of the change of the system, we won't feel. Our children, perhaps a bit, and then the ongoing impact of what we put in place now will continue to determine the health and anything in that context of our society. So we have to fight harder, faster, bigger, and I think the law helps. We have to go to the streets, we have to vote differently. We have to put our votes where our hearts and our minds are, otherwise nothing will change. But we also have to invest in the courts. In the Netherlands was the first court case against a government on the Paris Agreement. It was an NGO called Urgenda, great, friends, amazing. They put together this court case and they held the Dutch government accountable and said, you are not doing enough to implement the Paris Agreement. And the first layer of law said, you are right. And then the Dutch government, interestingly enough, did not fight the outcome of the decision, but fought the fact that this was done in court because they said it should be done in parliament. And it went all the way to the highest court, and the highest court said the Dutch government is not doing enough. And then the Dutch government, at that time, now we're wacko, but at that time they were pretty okay, said, okay, then we have to change what we're doing. Because, apparently, where we thought this was a parliamentary thing, we're held accountable, so we have to change our climate policy. So yes, it works. It's a super long answer to a question I couldn't answer.
Can I amplify
Oh, really, can I amplify a bit? what
Please,
Hank is
please
saying?
do.
I think, you know, the essence of what Henk is saying is we are suckers. Because think about it, you know, when I came to the United States, which was 45, 50 years ago, I saw this pan coming to our PFAS story, non-stick. I was going, wow, I don't even have to use oil and I can cook on this. This is like amazing. I can buy a coat that the rain will just slide off. That's totally amazing. I want this, right?
The pen and the gun.
Yeah,
both. Yeah.
both,
Yeah.
right? And so there's, if you think about it, most of the people who have become very rich have counted on your response and not asking questions about it. The current generation of social media has actually commoditized humans. Think about it. You know, we have funny humans, we have ugly humans, we have everything that you want to go see in a human zoo, like New York City, now on your channel, right? So the fact that the human psychology works exactly against humanity as we think about it is one of the biggest paradoxes, and I think that's what Hank was driving at. If you look at the policy frame, which, you know, I'm trying to signal that you should talk next. Yeah, if you look at the policy frame, it's actually amazing because the sucker mentality gets politicians elected also,
Yeah.
you know, and we fall for it over and over again.
All over the world.
Yeah, and the question is, you know, how do we step up? And this is what Henk was calling stupidity, you know, but it's not stupidity at the level of those people. They're very smart because they're getting what they want. The stupidity is on us.
And with that,
Yeah, but so
I
b-
want-
before that, yes and no, but the daughter of the CEO also gets cancer, because so the stupidity is that close.
Yeah.
And that's why I totally agree. I always agree with you. But here is the disconnect. There is this idea that we can outsource danger to the ones we don't like, or that are far away, or that are vulnerable anyway. But that is not the case, and PFAS shows, but with that, you know, bad air, climate change, anything, that it's hitting everyone, but we feel it perhaps a little bit different, and the scale might be different in communities that are way more vulnerable, and especially in the global south, which are super far away. So we outsource the problems, we think, but it is that close, and that makes the smartness even more stupid.
and first of all, I think that, you know, we heard a lot perception, value, up to us. These themes is literally why we're here. Because we do have the power. It might sound a bit like a cliche and like, we can do it, guys, but no, we do. And I kind of want to circle back. I don't know if you know this, but water lobbyism in the US is really challenging. It's not like other lobbies. And I actually I'm pretty excited to bring this conversation back to you, Mae, just because you were there in the Flint aftermath, right? You were there after the mess happened. You had to, you know, clear the policy up, take care of the people. And I'm kind of curious, from what you're sensing, and Mae came from DC, by the way, so we're very happy to have her, you know. What do you feel presently are the roadblocks, right, to PFAS framework in Congress? And also, how do we overcome the industry barriers that are placed there?
Yes. Okay. So those are like the questions, right? I want to tie this all sort of back together with this sort of short-term stupidity that we were just talking about versus the long-term, we know what we need to do. I think what I would say is that is just human nature, right? Like, I know I should go on a diet, but I want a cookie today, so I'll start my diet tomorrow. Like, everyone in this room has said that 100 times, right? That's just a normal thing. I think that that's just how humans work, right? And I also think that it is to our detriment to not realize that the last election in this country was very much about how are you going to make my personal life in my home, in my family, how are you going to make that better today? Because people are really hurting, right? Their cost of living is very expensive. I don't have to tell you guys that. It's cheaper in DC than it is here, but still pretty expensive in DC. But people are hurting and they need that immediate relief. You can't, if you are in a situation where you are living paycheck to paycheck, you do not care about a policy that's going to go into effect and help 4 generations later, right? Like, you're not going to be around for it. It literally doesn't matter. If you talk to anybody who is struggling financially, you will know that they are not thinking farther ahead than just a couple weeks. And I tell you as somebody who has lived this life, right? So that's the first thing, right? And so I think that there are a lot of really, really smart things that we need to be doing, but we need to be making sure that people are feeling the change right now, because that's what they need, right? That's what they're asking for. And I don't know that if you are struggling, asking for change right now is stupid. It's just short-sighted because you have to be short-sighted, right? That said, there are plenty of things that we could be doing that are helping, or would be helpful now and also helpful later. To get to the point, your question about Flint, and then what should we be doing in Congress to be dealing with this? Well, so just to sort of fill everybody in on what Orly was referring to. I wrote the legislation that addressed the Flint crisis. I don't know if you can tell, but by my accent, but I grew up in Michigan, in the suburbs, halfway between Detroit and Flint. Yes, exactly. One Midwesterner. I love it. So I was very lucky to sort of be in the right place at the right time, working for an incredible senator, Senator Cardin from Maryland. He very much was the leader on water and lead in the Senate, and when the Flint crisis sort of bubbled up to the national level, he asked me to write the legislation that would address the problem and also address the same problem in 2,000 other cities that none of you have ever heard of before that also had elevated levels of lead in their water, right? So I wrote that bill for the senator, negotiated it. That bill passed 97-2 in the Senate and unanimously in the House. This was in let me see if I get my years right. This was in 2016, the last 2 years of the Obama administration. I don't know if you guys remember that because it feels like 20 lifetimes ago, but that was not a very bipartisan time. People were not really excited to work together. So if you can get those kind of vote counts on something water infrastructure related, and it was billions of dollars in funding, right? That really showed me that there is a small window of things that we can do in Washington that can actually work, right? That we can actually get the legislation passed and we can actually get agreement on. And that legislation is still, that was the vehicle for all of this $55 billion that I mentioned. That was the vehicle for all of that money to go through, right? All the programs that we created in that bill. And then the next one in 2018 passed 99-1. 2018, President Trump was in office. 2016, President Obama was in office. Doesn't matter who's the president, doesn't matter who's in charge of Congress. Congress wants to do work on this issue. They love working on water infrastructure because it meets the exact criteria that we just mentioned. It is going to make your life better today because all of us are drinking water today, right? And so if we're making people's lives better today, that is what a politician needs, right? Like that is why they're in Washington. So to answer the question of what does Congress need to do, they would love to work on this, right? They would love to spend more money on water infrastructure. They know it's a winning political issue. They know it's going to make their constituents' lives better back home. I know that maybe we have a lot of different ideas about what a politician's job is or what they think their job is, but their job is to make their constituents happy so they get reelected, right? There's lots of different ways to do that, but that's their job, right? So spending money on water infrastructure makes their constituents happy. We have polling that shows 79% of people in the U.S. are more likely to vote for their member of Congress if they spend more on water infrastructure, right? If they specifically vote to increase federal funding for water infrastructure people are 79% of people are more likely to vote for their member of Congress. That is compelling data for any member of Congress, right? They want to work on this stuff. They need to hear about it, and that I think is the thing that that really we need from you guys today, right? We mentioned lobbying on water infrastructure is difficult. It very much is, because there's not a lot of people that work on water infrastructure in the U.S. as compared to in Washington D.C. as compared to literally any other topic. So, I mean, I'm friends with all the water lobbyist folks. There's about 12 of us. I employ 6 of them. Okay, there's not many.
And we
of
have
us.
the best one right here.
Thank you. There's really not many of us at all. And then you compare that to the energy sector, or the defense sector, or the pharmaceutical sector, right? The numbers are astounding. I mean, like tens of thousands of lobbyists on each of those issues compared to 12 water lobbyists. That's why we need you guys to call members of Congress and say, I demand this, right? They want to hear that from you, but if they're not hearing it from you, they've got a lot of other crises to deal with. And there's so many crises, right? Like an overwhelming amount of things that they need to deal with. If they don't hear from you, then they're going to think, well, water is taking care of, my constituents don't care about that. I'm going to work on these other things that my constituents are yelling at me about. So that's why you have to call.
So this brings a very interesting point. Like, I don't know what about you, but sometimes it feels like there's just this never-ending set of issues that we have to resolve, that, you know, they go under the umbrella of climate change or man-made issues. I'm kind of wondering, and I'm going to direct this, I'm going to start with you, Henk, and I kind of want to hear from all of you. Because of the nature of this contamination, right? We're all in the same boat. As you said, even the daughter of the CEO, you know, she will have PFAS. Do you believe that this could be, you know, dare I say, the catalyst that we were waiting for to push this change? Do you think PFAS can become this like banner that we globally, locally, regionally, whatever level can carry?
No. Party pooper, sorry. To your point, the cookie metaphor. Yes, but people also fall in love. And that's also something that happens. So I think humans are way more complex than neglecting a signal, either from your own self or your environment. We are all passionate. So yes, we can. Friends in sports that go super crazy because, you know, and in science, if you want to do something, you set aside the things that make what you want more impossible. So I believe in that human nature because I see it everywhere around the world. And yes, part of our life is about saying yes to the cookie, but part of our life is about saying no to the cookie. So I think we have that capacity and that character in us to really achieve something. I do think that PFAS is something completely different than the bill you're talking about, on are politicians willing and able to vote for water infrastructure. Yeah, I think, and the US is a totally different case than Mexico or any other country around the world. But fighting the corporate sector is a little bit different than finding votes for water infrastructure. And we're talking here about a system that is super strong and that's looking for opportunities to have an alternative in the context of where they are right now. And I think they are looking for that alternative too. And we have a history around the world where when those alternatives worked, we shifted gear and course. But we lack perhaps the imagination, the opportunities, or the capacity, or we're so stuck to our current way of doing things that those alternatives are not yet emerging. Interestingly enough, I said the 99%. 1% of global investment is a massive amount of dollars. It's unimaginable. I mean, it's like, whatever. You can do everything, you think, 1%. within that, massive amount of opportunities and innovations and ideas are happening and being implemented, are looking for scale. So I think there is so much happening that we can tap into, that if we turn 1 into 2, 2 becomes 4, and then we're there. But I don't think that PFAS all of a sudden become the game changer, exactly because what's happening, we can settle the deal, and then the larger part of the conversation is out of sight in the context of, you know, a political context. Do I get elected or non-elected, etc., etc. So I think water, yes, is magical. It can be part of that game changing because it can help present an alternative where investing in water helps improves our lives, our livelihoods, our environment, health, creates opportunities, is founded in innovations that spur science, partnerships, communities across the world. So yes, I believe in that, but less so in the context of where you focus it, corner it in one part and say, okay, now all of a sudden PFAS is going to be the game changer for the world. Therefore, it's way more complex. But I do think that there is a, you know, working with communities around the world, a massive array of alternatives that have the opportunity to fall in love instead of, you know, eat the cookie. Yeah.
Thank you. What about you, Manu?
Yeah, so I have to always talk after Henk, right? So I was going to try to connect with you too in the process. So here's the thing, okay? The United States of America passed the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. These were benchmark global legislations because they got copied by everybody. So when you come to PFAS, we suddenly realize that the intent of the Clean Water Act never got followed in this particular case. And by proxy, the Safe Drinking Water Act failed, right? So we are at this kind of strange time where those benchmark legislations are actually not really active. I had a bunch of students do an analysis of the performance of the Clean Water Act. It was really interesting. Between 1974, time gets passed, and 1985, if you look at dissolved oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, metals around the United States, there is improvement. What has happened since then? We are not even recording violations. So the problem that we are talking about, you know, in a way, has become fundamental because we are not really paying attention to something we decided was our legislative priority. So funding water infrastructure, I will always love that. So no argument there because we need it. But how do we, to the point that Henk was bringing up, come down on a corporation that has effectively willfully done what has transpired as a gross violation over exactly the time period that we are talking about? This is a question that, you know, it seems that even in the 1980s, when TCE was an issue for groundwater, those corporations were held accountable and things were happening.
Right.
It almost seems to me that with the climate change issues, with the total degradation of environmental factors, we now see, oh yeah, there's the Amazon rainforest. Okay. We have Chesapeake Bay, you know, we have harmful algal blooms everywhere. We are just being beaten down by the plethora of these things that are coming up, and we are simply not addressing them. So I would say that if you want the PFAS issue to manifest, which I agree with Henk, it's not going to happen. But if you want to use it, it has to be put in this context, that we have a total degradation and this is the last straw. We have to fight back.
Well, I'm going to end on a much more positive note, although I will just say that I am I am dumber than each of these men's pinky fingers, so you'll bear with me here. However, what I will say is that the question was about, can we use PFAS as a movement, as a catalyst to make societal change on lots of other issues, right? And I absolutely believe that that is true because I have seen water infrastructure be that catalyst, right? when I was in the Senate and I was working on these bills, there were members of Congress that would not even speak to each other, right? They wouldn't even want to be in the same room with each other. They would call each other all sorts of names very publicly. I mean, it was a mess. And they came together. They all put their priorities into these bills. They worked together. They got these bills done. It changed the relationships between those members of Congress. It changed the relationships between people on the ground in their districts, right? Because now they're seeing, oh, we can actually work together. There are things that we have in common, right? And that's very unusual, right? One of the members of Congress or one of the senators that Senator Cardin worked very closely with on all of these issues was Senator Inhofe. If you remember Senator Inhofe, he's the one that was famous for throwing the snowball on the Senate floor to show that climate change couldn't possibly be real, right? And if you can get that guy and Senator Cardin, who obviously is a big believer in climate change, he also was, one of the, he was the sort of the top Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee during the Paris Climate Agreement, right? So it's not like he doesn't believe in climate change or that we should be doing something about it. If you can get those two guys to sit down and talk to each other and come to an agreement on billions of dollars of funding to help communities all over the country, they can find that there are things that they have in common that they can work together on. And that has a ripple effect back home in their districts and also to all of the other relationships that they have on the Hill. And so if the question is, can we use something like water infrastructure to create a movement that will break open a lot of other very difficult issues? Yes, I absolutely 100% wholeheartedly believe that it can, because I've seen it done. So I'm ending on a positive note. I hope you all feel better. Yes.
And thank you so much, guys, for the panel.
Corporation is not who told Congress that 700 sites in this country are contaminated. That's the DOD. In all states, multiple states, they can tell you the Strangford National PFAS Coalition, we've got laws passed in 8 states, and the DOD has told them in writing they will not comply. So you just do the math. And in my state, Colorado, the DOD admitted the contamination started in 1970. So the only issue I have with this is they said, oh, they sold it. No, the DOD invented AFFF. They invented it and they patented it. So nobody was selling it to the DOD, and it was required to be used at airports across the world. So when you talk about money, you just figured it out. The GAO says they're going to have to clean up at least 400 sites within the United States. So you're talking about how many billions of dollars. And you're talking about a group of people that will not comply. So you can't talk about fixing PFAS without talking about the DOD. I've done interviews in the Netherlands. There's articles on me in the Netherlands. Yeah, they've been more successful than we have, but our problem is it's the DOD. And most people tell you they think I'm crazy for holding the DOD accountable, but we're military veterans, so we have a little bit more leverage. So that's,
I appreciate you bringing that up.
But it's
And
really important because people aren't talking about, they keep saying corporation.
it was interesting. I couldn't even get data. I wanted to do an icebreaker and show how much PFAS, depending where you come from, you have. I couldn't even find data on that. I'm without my glasses, so I don't know what you're pointing on, but I totally agree. This is a very complex topic. We do want to be conscientious of the fact that after it was found in human sampling, 90% of it was produced, okay? So 100%, there's accountability there that we don't fully understand yet. And one might suggest, I have some lawyers here, they might agree with me, that the settlement happened because they didn't want to take it to court, because they didn't want to disclose the documents. So thank you for that fine note.
But they never sued the DOD.
Here's hoping.
They won't. I've been trying for years to get lawyers to sue the DOD. The money, 3M.
You know, I have the best water lobbyist right here. Like, you know, we should
I need to interject. We're not going to have the space for much more than an hour. We're in the home stretch. We have snacks and nibbles and sweets. But before we do that, please, a round of applause. Thank you to our panel. Thank you to Orly, our board member. All right. So, thank you, Hank. So, Nora, come on up here. So, everybody, this is Nora Strandy. You heard her earlier. She's available for internships. She is applying to colleges, and her father would love anyone to give any advice for her college application process. This young woman has been lauded by the White House Center for Environmental Quality staff. She's spoken with senators, representatives, and government agencies on the national level advocating against the use of PFAS. Spoken on behalf of the White House regarding President Biden's PFAS clean drinking water standard. How old are you, 19? She's 19. But wait, there's more. She's completed internships with Environmental Working Group, Clean Water Action Minnesota. She's testified to keep Amara's Law intact in the state of Minnesota. She's written an original song, and we're going to close this out for a moment. She's going to sing for us her song, This Is Our Fight.
As a child, became strong and wild, running free. Oh, she sang the song of her village. Oh, but she just couldn't fight off the pain. Her land grew weak and poisoned, but wouldn't quit all the noise of the song she would sing. She would sing, this is our fight, this is our lives. Raise your gavel and do what's right. Don't quit just now to drink your wine, 'cause this is our fight, this is our lives. Do what's right, do what's right. I met a girl once, she was naive, but she could be real blunt, like an axe to a tree. I met a girl once, she was there for me, and the people she would meet all gathered round at her feet, and we'd sing, this is our fight, this is your life. Raise your gavel and do what's right. Don't quit just now to drink your wine, 'cause this is our fight, this is your life. Do what's right. And the poison seeped through her skin, but that couldn't make her quit her song that she sang in the night, till she took her last breath of life. This is our fight, this is your life. Raise your gavel and do what's right. Don't quit just now to drink your wine, 'cause this is our fight, this is your life. This is our lives, just do what's right. The people are crying out in the night. Don't quit just now, right for the fight, 'cause this is our fight, this is your life. Do what's right, do what's right.
Thank you
Thank you very much, Nora. Okay, so we're going to stand up. You can migrate to Millen and the water sommelier station. We've got some food and snacks and sustainably sourced beer, wine, and something over here to drink. We need to fold your chairs up when you move. So thank you very much for being here tonight. We're here until 10. Have a good night.